You've got the town lawyer with like brass knuckles, like ready to go.
Brass.
You're about to get served.
Hello, and welcome to the Tabletop Travel Guide, the podcast where we explore fictional worlds and civilizations right from the comfort of our own table. I'm Tyler.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sam.
And today, we are going to dive right into the thrilling conclusion of the River Kingdoms.
Part 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, so last week, we talked through 3 different areas of the 8 kingdoms. We talked through Daggermark, Gralton, and Lambreth. And so Sam today is going to take us through the remaining 5, and then we'll finally give you what you all have been waiting for, an entire week for the score of Tabletop Travel Guide of what the River Kingdoms is going to be. So with that, I hand it off to Sam.
All right, so we are back in the River Kingdoms. I know it has been a whole week, but just high level, this is our area that is full of rivers, bandits, and weird governments.
Weird kingdoms.
Weird
kingdoms. And the Selin
systems of
River.
government. Yes, the Selin River. All right, so we are going to jump right back into our next kingdom here. We are going to make a quick stop in Mivan.
Cool.
Mivan.
Not sure if
Mivan.
that's exactly how I pronounce it, but I like it. It sounds fancy. So Mivan is a land full of Aldori sword lords,
Hey.
who we just talked about, which is great. So these are descendants of Aldori sword lords who fled south when Coral the Conqueror started his conquest in 4499. So these are people that all fled out of Brevoy, have settled here. As such, this is a territory built on swordsmanship.
Swordsmanship.
I don't know if that's... Okay, sure. We'll
Look, we have territories built on assassins. Like
Look,
we
this one
talked about
actually
last week.
doesn't sound too bad.
Okay.
There's actually not a lot about Mivan, so we're not going to have a ton here, but we are going to talk about how their government is created.
Is it full of people, watery tarts throwing swords?
Not quite. The basis of society here is the List of Suitors, which is a monthly publication that lists the results of all of the duels in the last month.
Do you have to be single and a duelist to be on this? Like, if you're a good duelist and also just happen to be married, are you no longer on the list of suitors?
Look, there are suitors for duels, Tyler, and there are suitors for love. We are only talking about the suitors for duels.
Aw.
But, keep going. Yep.
Keep going.
I have questions, but I will hold.
Hold your questions till the end, Ryan.
So in the center of town, in the square, they host a weekly gathering of swordsmen and swordswomen who wish to prove themselves publicly.
Uh-huh.
These duels do have some rules, and this is essentially what this entire territory revolves around. The rules for the duels are as follows. First, the challenged picks the weapons and armor. So Ryan, if I come up to you and say I'm challenging you to a duel, you get to choose how we are going to do that duel.
Naked
your
with
right.
forks, obviously.
Wow.
Look,
I am married, sir.
Look, the list of suitors is not.
That's why it's forks, not spoons. Come on.
The list of suitors is not about romance, Ryan. Stop.
Yeah, the forks.
All right, so then the two parties in this duel have to agree on the victory conditions. If they cannot, the duel is canceled and both suffer dishonor.
Sure.
So basically you have to decide together, is the duel finished when we have first blood? Is it finished when someone is disabled? Is it finished when someone is dead?
This naked fork duel is just one of the conditions.
It's getting very weird. The two parties must also agree on the stakes. Are we dueling for money?
$10.
Are we dueling for property? Anyone between the ages of 16 and 60 may duel.
Nice.
Minors may not. And if you're over 60, apparently you are too old, so you're not allowed anymore.
That's okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All genders may participate. in any duel.
Good.
Only the Aldori are eligible to win government positions. So if you are from another country, you cannot roll up and be like, I would like to challenge you to a duel over your lordship if you are not actually a citizen or an Aldori.
Can you become a citizen?
I think you can, but you can't become an Aldori because that's a blood descendant situation.
Cool.
So you could duel someone for their house, but not their title necessarily.
You're still the noble, but you're in that shit out back now.
We trade.
There are limits to how many duels you can do. You are only allowed 3 duels per week per person, and no duel lasts longer than 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh, this is so specific.
It really is. I'm like I said, they don't want you to get tired, or they don't want you to get greedy, maybe. Like, you can't be dueling everybody for everything all the time. All duels must be witnessed by at least one friend of each participant. Otherwise, fatalities are considered homicide.
Oh.
So, what this means is that, Tyler, I cannot be like, I'm going to challenge you to a duel, and Ryan, my BFF, is going to witness, and you have none, and then I just shank you in an alley.
And then I'm like,
that doesn't
it was
count.
great. It was all legit. Sam was perfectly fine.
She was perfectly fine.
So, that's, I guess, a positive, kind of. And then the outcome of any duel is irrevocable. So if I beat you in a duel and I take your house, you cannot argue that. If you agreed to the terms.
I'm still hung up that we call this the list of suitors and not like the list of duelists.
It's maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like speed dating, but you're speed dueling.
This is one
way
to
like... Who's best suited to... Nope, not going to say that. That's going to be bad.
So this
like
form
old school Tinder. You just swipe right in and challenge the person to a duel.
I imagine... We're all old here at the Tabletop Travel Guide. I imagine this is like reading a Discord server as a form of government. Like, who do I talk to get my passport stamped? Oh man, I gotta go back 3 months in the list of suitors.
The rules are posted in the general chat. It's pinned at the top. Chat through those, DM somebody, make sure there's the duels channel that you can go publicly witness. Make sure at least 3 people are on the voice chat when you're dueling.
Yeah, and then obviously different like moderator roles. Like, you can't duel for certain moderator roles. Yeah, this sounds exhausting.
See, conversely, I read this and thought that it sounded like Bridgerton, which is like the Netflix show that takes place in like the 1800s, where everyone is just living their lives based off of a gossip pamphlet every week.
Yeah, that totally checks too. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just like, we're all going to read this, and this is our hot goss, and who won what, and who did this, and did you see
like,
who got kicked out or whatever? About
farming? Like, okay, so like, sire, we're not going to have enough food this month. Not now. Billy beat Johnny in a duel for the 3rd time this week.
Obviously, if you have your sword and somebody shows up and is like, we don't have enough food, you're like, okay, I duel that guy for his crop of potatoes this month.
I made this. This is mine now.
But that's basically the whole country.
Okay, no further questions.
No, zero further questions,
That's
Your Honor.
all the information they give us. So if you go there, just be really prepared to duel.
Great.
For anything.
Sure.
Do you have to... So do you have to accept a duel?
No, because both parties have to agree on it and the victory conditions. So if you don't really care a whole lot, you can just be like, no, I don't agree to that. And then you just are dishonored.
You suffer
if you're
dishonor,
not
Tyler.
really into that,
I feel like
then it's not a...
in a country run by like duels,
professional swordsmen.
Dishonor is probably about as bad. So you pretty much have to accept any challenger.
You like step 1 foot in the country. I challenge you for everything you're worth. No,
it's literally the like Pokemon games where you're walking down the street and somebody stops and you can't get out of the duel and you're like, I'm just trying to get to the Pokemon Center, and it's like, time to duel.
I just caught this Weedle. Let's fight.
Yep, that's basically it.
A combination of Pokemon, Bridgerton, and a Discord channel.
That's our ranking.
Welcome to move on. All right, we are going to move on from move on. Back to the river. All right, we are going to jump on the river to the next country that also shares a border with Brevoy. We are going to stop in Pitax.
Pitax. Okay.
which is a weird name, but it's
Yeah.
fine. So Pitax is south of Brevoy and was founded by brigands from Brevoy to
Great.
have the opposite side of the
It's
coin
good
here.
alliteration. What are you? We're the brigands from Brevoy.
Ooh.
This one's kind of fun, though. So 4 centuries ago, there was a rogue with sorceress powers named Césaire Catanay,
Césaire Catanay.
also known as the Silver Fox.
The Silver Fox.
I just keep picturing George Clooney. It's fine.
Oh, you're such a silver fox.
Side note, my wife insists that I'm not a silver fox, and it makes me sad all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, because you don't have any gray hairs.
I know. It's a running joke. It's fine.
I insist that me with my. I'm
We
more
can
of a
fix
silver
that for
fox
you.
than you.
You are 100% more of a silver fox.
You're like getting silver.
I'm getting silver.
You're not full silver.
No, I'm still a lot of brown. Anyway, this has been Ryan and
been Ryan
Tyler's
Tyler's
hair
hair.
color. with
Or you could
Pitax.
be like me that just dyes their hair, so I'll never know.
Hmm.
All right, so anyway, back to the silver fox of the story. He takes to hiding his band of thieves in a riverside hamlet known as Pitax.
Cool.
They don't reside there permanently. They're mainly using it as their hiding place when they aren't off stealing things from Brevoy. So this
Okay.
is like the vacation home, right?
Sure.
So as the Silver Fox and his band of thieves amass stolen gold, Pitax grows out of just like a fishing village on the river into a larger domain because they're benefiting from all of this
Yeah.
like stolen gold and goods. So good for them. Eventually, the prices on the heads of the Silver Fox and his band grow too large for them to really like continue on as they have. The risks are outweighing the benefits
Yeah.
here. So they can't really continue on. So they decide to give up thieving and live in Pitax permanently.
Huh.
They build walls, they hire sellswords for defense, and this is what cements Pitax as a river kingdom.
So like Robin Hood goes legit.
Yeah, that's where it started.
Okay.
Steal from the rich and build my walls.
So that was 4 centuries ago. So
Okay.
so Pitax has continued on.
Nothing bad has happened.
We'll get there. So Pitax has constant issues with its neighbors. So Mivan and Pitax share a border, and they frequently fight over the land there because it's the best land for farming.
I imagine Mivan keeps showing up, be like, we're gonna duel you for your farmland, and Pitax is like, that's not how we do things here. Stop it. Stop
away.
trying to make duels happen.
Yes, exactly. And then they also have Numeria to the north.
Oh,
So Numerian brigands attack a lot. Brevoy frequently threatens to attack, though they never have.
It's very Brevoy of them.
They're like, we could if we wanted to.
they keep sending tax collectors down here.
And then there are factions within Pitax that quarrel against each other as well. So the 2 largest factions are the Catanai, which is the Silver Fox's descendants,
Yeah.
that family, and then the Liasenza families. The Liasenzas are renowned for their fruit orchards.
Oh.
They have been in charge of Pitax for the better part of the last century.
Hmm.
However, in 4702,
So like 20 years ago.
yes, so recently, a Numerian bard arrives. His name is Castruccio Irovetti.
Castruccio Iravetti.
I just like that
Pretty
this
sorry for all of our Italian listeners.
is the Italy of the River Kingdoms. So he buys his way into the various trading houses and makes partnerships with important merchants, notably the rivals of the Liasenza
No,
family.
can't do that.
So then, one evening, Iravetti invites the leaders of the Liasenza family, the brothers Lothair and Berenguer,
Berenguer.
to a card game at one of his warehouses. I cannot with Ryan. So anyway, no one really knows what happened that night because no one really remembers. However, the next morning, Iravetti possessed a signed document legally handing over all of the possessions of the Liasenza family, including the crown of Pitax.
Sure.
Okay.
So we don't know. Did he like play a card game and like
Bet the crown.
like bet the crown?
Roofie a bunch of people and bet the crown.
Did he roofie them? Did he bard magic them? Who knows? So anyway, he takes control of Pitax one evening over cards. So he then attempts to mold Pitax into something more respectable. So he founds the Academy of Grand Arts to promote fine arts and high culture.
Oh.
But he's a little bit too controlling of the process and insists on controlling what the artists of the Academy create and do.
Goes against everything in the art.
So he's not really attracting highly skilled artists or talented people because they're like, well, we don't want to just make what you want us to make. We can all infer that we're like, propaganda art is where we're kind of going with this, right? Like, look at my great and amazing city, make things that proclaim our greatness. And they're like, no, I'm angsty and I'm an art student. I want to write about the slums. So it's not, it doesn't go as well as he originally envisions. So while Pitax does have a lot of legitimate businesses, it's not quite the culture epicenter that Irivetti was aiming for.
So it's like, fine. You're like, oh, there's art. It's like mass-produced art. Or like
I'm trying to think of what city in the U.S. would be like the cultural fine.
Ooh.
Vegas? No.
I don't think we're quite like that flashy.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is like a city that's like really trying to be cool and is not doing a great job?
I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
know.
But yeah, so that's Pitax.
Okay.
Essentially. So it's not terrible. It has kind of a cool founding story.
Well, I feel like, there's probably art districts. It's like probably, it's not like the best, but you're like, it's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, so Irivetti is kind of characterized as being very charismatic as a leader. He's a bard, so that makes sense. Yeah. So he's not like one of our like tyrant leaders necessarily, but I think he does have a very specific idea of what he wants Pitax to be represented as.
Yeah, I get strong Italian city-state vibes. Like,
yeah. So that is Pitax.
Okay.
So I think we've gone slightly up on the scale of things.
It's fine.
Our next kingdom that we are going to head to is called Seven Arches. Now, this is going to be a little bit more in the southwest chunk of the River Kingdoms. It is the largest river kingdom by land area.
Okay.
Possibly it is also the most stable, depending on how you want to measure stability. It was once an elven settlement, and it has been continuously inhabited for thousands of years. So it's probably the only territory that has been continuously inhabited here by people groups. It is home to humans and fae.
Okay.
The territory Seven Arches is named for the major city, which is also Seven Arches, which is named for a circle of seven arches in the middle of the city.
Checks out.
You know what you're about, yeah.
They shift in color and radiate illusion magic, and they're all spaced 20 feet apart. They are reported to be old elven arches that could be a passage to the first world.
So kind of like the Ayudara we talked about in Keonan episode.
Yes. But this is actually a lie told to keep people away from the true arches.
Oh.
The true arches are actually farther into the territory, like very deep and away from all of like the civilized parts. They are guarded by the oak stewards, who we will talk a little bit more about, but they don't function as they were meant to when they were first constructed. So they were meant to be portals to other realms. However, something has been corrupted in them, so now the portals only bring in monsters.
Oh, it's not great.
So it's the Oak Steward's true duty to protect Golarion from the monsters that escape. There's also a really weird thing with them where if elves get too close, they start to like go a bit crazy, and it's like a weird disease that they get. So the Oak Stewards also make sure that no elves can come in the area so that they don't get the blight. So who are then the Oak Stewards?
Yeah.
So they are druids that... they're druids, so they're going to be loyal to the land first, and they operate in secrecy. Not much is known about their movements, but we do know about 4 of the roles that they hold. That doesn't mean that there's only 4 of them, but like 4 of the functions that they take in society are known. The first one is called the Voice of the Wind, and they serve as the speaker to outsiders and the foreign affairs diplomat. So... this is not necessarily a position that's always the same person, though, so a different voice of wind has attended each outlaw council. Okay. But that's who would go to that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The root of the sapling encourages growth of crops and children.
Nice.
Okay.
The bloom of the harvest ensures proper food distribution to 7 arches and foreign buyers. And the sharp of the beak defends the borders, waters, and roads.
Sharp of the bark.
The sharp of the bark defends the borders, waters, and roads of 7 arches.
Okay.
Nice.
So the territory itself is rather wild. So we have that main city called 7 Arches, and then
Yeah.
various towns and farms along the rivers. Wild animals roam free throughout the territory, and travelers, when they go through, are cautioned to do so in groups just because of the wildness of the area. So the Oak Stewards, in general, keep banditry at a minimum, which is great. However, they do retain the ability to demand up to 90% of a person's holdings.
Oh my gosh.
Whether or not they are a citizen of 7 Arches. So if you travel here, generally there's a reason for this, but they might not tell you what it is. So rebellion in 7 Arches just gets you banished. Armed rebellion is punishable by flaming execution.
Flaming execution.
I know, it's a little intense.
Yeah, this just doesn't... like, this feels worse. You're like, well, don't worry, you won't get your watch stolen. But on the good side, we take the rest of your property as well.
Well, so kind of what this looks like in practice, like you could go years in 7 Arches without actually encountering an Oak Steward. But then they could show up to your town and demand whatever they want. So like at one point in history, they demanded an entire village be abandoned without really explaining why, and they didn't assist with relocation.
No questions asked.
So we kind of
Yeah.
have this like kind of otherworldly entity here that's, you know, looking at all these different things and knowing about that it's their sacred duty to guard the actual 7 Arches and keep the monsters at bay. You can kind of assume that maybe some of the things that they request are for safety concerns. Like, did we tell everybody to move because monsters were going to show up here and I'm helping people, but I can't tell them that. So it's a
Is it
little
like
bit of a
they're-
weird...
Are they setting, or like they're setting a trap? Like, we need this village to set the
Yeah.
trap. Or like,
But is it like
Right.
common knowledge? Is it common knowledge that the arches are actually...
It's not.
So like...
So people don't know that.
Yeah, I feel like that... So it's
so
like...
yeah, as a person.
It's like you have the Oak Stewards might have the best intentions in mind and like be protecting stuff, but they're so secretive that everyone's like,
Yes.
yeah, these jerks just show up and steal my crap occasionally. It sucks.
Yeah, so that's the problem, right? Is like they could have good intentions, but they're not telling anyone what
Yeah.
it actually is.
Hmm.
So the Fey influence that's here makes 7 Arches really challenging to conquer, which is how it's remained as it is for so long.
Sure.
It's also a huge producer of food. The druidic magic helps with farming. And 7 Arches is pretty charitable to their neighboring kingdoms with food resources, which keeps them with pretty positive foreign relations with everybody around. So there are some parts of stability, but then also some odd parts.
Well, you don't want to burn the breadbasket. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as a place to go, this still feels like a pretty interesting place to explore.
Is there a campaign about Oak Stewards?
So there's...
Because this sounds cool.
Yeah, so there's a... Hilariously, I'm listening to this on a different podcast right now. If you want to listen to it, the Glass Cannon podcast, if you're a Glass Cannon podcast person, you should call out our podcast on this as well. No, I'm kidding. But if you listen to the Glass Cannon podcast, they're like one of the biggest actual plays. Is not sponsored by Paizo, but whatever. But anyway, so they're running through Gatewalkers, and so Gatewalkers starts in
Okay.
7 Arches,
Mm.
and there's stuff going on there. I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh, if we're in this area, maybe we should do a spoiler guide on it. But I might not. We might not do that because I'm listening to the podcast right now. We'll see. We might spoil it. It's fine. But yeah, Gatewalkers dives into some of this stuff.
This is very cool.
Yeah.
I like this.
It's definitely a neat area. So what I like about the Guide to the River Kingdoms, too, if you actually read through that campaign setting, it gives you adventure hooks for each of these places.
Mhm.
It's really cool.
So I did not get into all of the adventure hooks, obviously, but there's some really fun things where it just kind of helps you if you wanted to set something in one of these places. Like,
Yeah.
here are some things that your party could start with,
Mhm.
which is cool.
Yeah. Nice. So looking pretty good. I mean, might not want to live in 7 Arches, but
Could be cool to
Maybe
visit.
A week-long trip could be cool.
yeah.
All right, back on the boat.
Back on the boat.
We are going to head to Timon.
Okay.
Timon, maybe? Timon?
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 It's spelled Tymon.
Timon.
Time-
It's a Digimon.
We'll call it Timon in honor of Tyler.
Thank you. Hey, Timon.
What does Timon digivolve into?
Tylermon.
Wow.
Very, very creative.
Terrible naming.
Look. Yes.
All right, so Timon is one of our older river kingdoms. It is founded in 2021.
Oh.
Yes.
I had to think about that for a second.
In Golarion time, I'm
yes.
I'm like 4 years ago? No. Not.
over 2,000.
Yeah,
closer
a
to
while
3,000.
Yeah.
All right, it is founded by the famous Taldan gladiator, Maldar Timon.
Oh,
there you go.
He was part of the 5th Taldan Army of Exploration
Oh, okay.
that explored and mapped out the lands that would become the River Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Maldar's heroism in the army earned him the governance of this territory for Taldor.
That's very
Taldor of
That's
them.
very
Very,
Taldor,
very
yeah.
exploration-y of them. So he founds the town of Timon, named for himself. Everyone's just naming things after themselves here in the River Kingdoms. And many of the other soldiers stay on to help carve out this part of the River Kingdoms.
Men, we have fought with our blood for this land. We shall call it Timon. And our nation will be named Timon.
So with this land, Maldar intends to create a gladiatorial haven.
Oh my god.
I'm down. That's cool.
Come on.
But before he can see his dream fully realized, he's getting older. And he's lived, a rough exploring gladiator life. And he's starting to die of old age.
Uh-huh.
So he starts looking for a way to cheat death.
As is traditional.
He finds an answer with the Druids of Seven Arches.
Mm-hmm.
In exchange for promises to protect Seven Arches, the Oak Stewards reincarnate Maldar as an elf after he dies,
Oh.
thus allowing him to extend his mortal life and continue his vision for Timon.
I think if you're looking for ways to extend your life, that's like a budget way to do it.
Yeah,
if you're a human,
for
you're
sure.
like, crap, I don't have enough to be Sun Orchid Elixir or become a Lich or whatever. Can you reincarnate me as an elf that gives me like 400 more years to deal?
Okay.
However, Maldar doesn't want his cheating of death to be a public thing. So to cover it up, he creates the law of succession,
Oh my gosh.
which establishes leadership through combat.
Great. Another one of these?
Yes. So he attends the combat as his new elven form, using the name Karth Valkner, and defeats a warrior that is disguised to look like his old body. Obviously, he's got some help to pull this off, but he doesn't let anyone aside from his few trusted individuals in on this plan. He continues this cycle for 2,700
Oh my
years.
gosh.
Going from reincarnated body to reincarnated body. And he is still in charge.
Do they fake a fight every time? That feels
Yes.
like there's, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
But, I mean, it's various, lifespans, right? So it could have been 400 years for the elf body.
Right.
But then if you were, popped into a human again, then it might only be 100 years.
One day, one of these, he pops into a goblin and lives 15 years. And then
Damn it!
Next succession. That's just impressive.
That's commitment.
Well, especially,
That's commitment.
you are the one reincarnating, but you're not reincarnating the people helping you with this.
Right, so you're constantly training a cohort.
So you have a succession of people who are we are the keepers of the Timon, the Timon secret.
Yeah. So over this huge span of time, Maldar builds up this gladiatorial wonderland in Timon. He builds a giant arena called the Arena of Aerodin.
Okay.
It seats 2,000 people. We also have a gladiatorial college. He also creates allies with the High Priest of Gorum.
Sure.
And there's a large temple to the Lord in Iron in Timon as well.
What about Kurth? Is Kurth big into this place? The deity of
He's not,
competitiveness?
He's not mentioned specifically, but I imagine yes. That seems like a very good fit.
It's like the Disneyland of gladiatorial arenas.
A little bit, yes. Yes.
Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
So more recently, the Oak Stewards have become more critical of this continued cycle of getting around birth and re-death.
Weird.
Obviously, all the current Oak Stewards are different than the ones
Yeah.
Mhm.
that originally bought into this, right? So the current ones have withdrawn their support for this. So currently, Maldar is living as a half-orc named Olorth Ungin and looking for a new druid to help him continue his rebirth cycle.
We can
Sure.
make that happen.
So TBD on where that goes.
Yeah.
But how Timon functions as a kingdom, it exists under 4 laws, which I will go through for you, just so that you know what you're getting to when you arrive here. The first is the Law of Blood.
Great.
This law gives those arena fighters who are deemed bloodied extra rights and privileges. A fighter is considered bloodied when you've won 10 battles in the arena. And only bloodied fighters can own land, carry open weapons, or own businesses.
What? This is the weirdest citizenship rule.
I just want to be a baker, but dang it, I have to go fight in the arena for so every
I gotta get my 10 fights in before I can be a baker.
so and like you have to win 10 fights. So,
Yeah.
like every business, like the bakery, the seamstress, like all of the things are just run by like buff people who have won.
I mean, you could like work in a business, but yeah, you can't own your own
Yeah, but, like,
until
yeah.
you've
The
won.
owners are just like ripped AF people.
That sounds right. The second law is the Law of Defense. This makes it mandatory for all of the bloodied warriors in Timon to defend the kingdom whenever it's attacked from the outside.
I just want to make my croissants.
This became really important, though, during the rise of Razmirin, because they're on that side that's close to Razmir as well. And it's also probably why Razmir did not overrun Timon.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just gonna one more bakery joke.
Oh my
I
God.
just like Razmir shows up and you have a standing army of like bunch of gladiators, a guy in like a fancy suit, a baker with a rolling pin, and they're just
A dude with a fishing rod, like, yep.
You've got the town lawyer with like brass knuckles, like ready to go.
Brass.
You're about to get served.
New character, a Timon lawyer. Oh,
This is great.
I'm I want to go here so bad. This
I
makes the
told you.
entirety of River
This is
Kingdoms
so
worth
dumb.
it.
I love it.
All right, our next law is the Law of Grievance. This was obviously created to resolve disputes.
Sure.
Anyone with a grievance that cannot be settled in the typical ways can challenge their offender to a duel in the arena.
Great.
They're generally not to the death, but they do end feuds definitively, so once you've lost, you've lost. This also makes large crimes like vengeance and murder fairly rare here in Timon.
That's
Okay.
fair.
I
Because
mean,
if you're mad at somebody, you just, let's duel over it.
Yeah.
So
if you short your baker 5 cents, they're gonna.
they're going to take you to the arena.
Can I speak to your manager? Are you sure about that? You can.
All right, and then the final law is the Law of Succession. So the specifics for this are any fighter who has won 100 battles in the arena can challenge the champion to a one-on-one duel to the death, with the winner becoming the new champion. And the champion is what we call the leader of the country.
So, dang.
But it's always Maldar.
yeah,
Sure.
So, okay, so that's
You
like
gotta earn it.
That's a lot of finagling too. If
How
he's,
long does it
if-
take to win 100 battles?
Yeah, like if he has a lot of help, he's like, I'll be back.
Well, but also think about it. It's like this is a man who has been doing this same thing
Oh.
for almost 3,000
That's
years.
true. He's probably just if you're a 3,000-year-old fighter, it's like you
Yeah.
are master of everything.
Yeah, but even like, assuming you do a duel a day, it still takes you like 4 months.
Yeah. Look.
But that's only if you want to become the leader of the country. Like,
yeah, but I'm
how
saying,
many
like,
people are
there's a
trying to be the
succession
leader of the
crisis
country?
for 4 months of the year. Like, the leader is dead.
At this point,
And
he's
it's like weekend at Bernie's. They're like
look. He's
holding the corpse on the throne.
look.
Well,
He's
but you
probably got that
already
figured
need-
out.
You already need 10 to own a business.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
Okay.
and if people are just calling each other out to the arena over all the random things,
That's
like,
That's fair.
you're probably doing,
You get 10 in a day.
He's
yeah.
probably tweaked the system over 2,700
That's fair,
years.
that's
That
the
runs
system
like
is
clockwork.
definitely rigged.
Yes.
This is dumb. I love it.
I love.
This
I
is-
want to go here and
this
build a
is
character
Timon.
from this place.
This is why I love the River Kingdoms, because they're all just So ridiculous, but so fabulous.
I like it.
All right, so that is the end of Gladiatorial Wonderland.
Okay.
We will get back on the boat with all of our souvenirs.
I guess.
All of our pictures of famous gladiators. And we will head off to our last of the main kingdoms here in the River Kingdoms. This one is Uringen.
Uringen.
It's spelled Uringen.
Seems right.
So
Yeah, Uringen.
I'm going to go Uringen. This chunk is almost entirely the Embeth Forest. So it's in the middle of the River Kingdoms. It's actually less rivery than the other kingdoms. The land here is densely wooded. There's a lot of stagnant marshes, but it's not great for farming or any other kind of industry because it's mostly just this like forest and marshland.
Okay.
It's generally avoided by travelers because
Fair.
it's not super easy to get through. But the citizens that live here are pretty chill with that. So this area is founded by an elfin named Birgi?
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 Birgi.
Sure.
I was thinking like Bjork. I'm like, do I pronounce the J like a Y?
Birgi?
Birgi.
Birgi?
Birgi.
Uringen, because we name everything for ourselves here in the River Kingdoms. So he settles in the River Kingdoms after a career of adventuring. He obviously names the settlement after himself. His companion is a wizard named Rona, who is from Ustalov.
Oh.
Rona is the brains of the operation. But together with Birgi, or however we want to say this name, they decide to build a clock tower. Now, this clock tower is built with stolen instructions that involve time alteration magic.
Where's my character?
I know,
Yeah.
your character
From
would do
last
really
week.
well here. However, in construction, due to either improper assembly, somebody tinkering with something they shouldn't, or arcane power surges from phase circles that are underneath where they build, the device malfunctions when it's first activated and brings the tower and all of the immediate surroundings into a pocket dimension
Oh.
that's partially outside of time,
Okay.
in between Golarion and the First World.
Whoopsie.
So this chunk covers the middle third of the town.
Oh, but it's not the whole town.
No!
Oh.
It includes the town square that the clock tower sits on. So now we have the static part of Uringen, which is outside of this, and then the unstuck in time part that is kind of accessible sometimes, but not all the time.
Sure.
So the people that live in the static part try not to venture into the unstuck part for very long for fear of getting sucked in and not being able to get back out.
Seems, yeah.
But they do, you can go in between the two. Both parts have their own mayor. And they trade off which one will represent Uringen in the Outlaw Council when it meets.
Oh.
Okay. Huh.
There are a lot of alchemical labs in Uringen. The kingdom has gained a reputation for powerful potions, and Uringen supplies Daggermark with ingredients for poisons, which contributes to the relative safety of the area as well, because they're in with the assassins and poisoners.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the most in-demand ingredients that they supply is called night moss, which grows in the forest outside of town. When it's prepared and distilled properly, night moss can create potions of cure light wounds.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
And then there's kind of a fun dynamic where potions from the unstuck part of town cost more because people think they're somehow better because they're from this weirder part of town.
20% markup.
20%
Yeah, so they
markup
get
because we're
just-
20% in the Fae.
For being weird, they get some bonuses
Counts
there.
as an
Okay.
import.
Counts as an import.
But for the most part, this little area is just functioning off of alchemy and selling ingredients out.
I feel like
Okay.
I feel like when you originally said that, like, oh, it's generally avoided by travelers. You're like, oh, what kind of shady stuff happens? It's like, no, it's just kind of like a weird clock tower and some potions.
It's just like
There's-
not totally worth going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and people can't find it is the other
Ah,
hard
well, I
part,
do
is
it.
that it's difficult to find, and then part of the town is sometimes not there. So
Yeah.
You know, like you do.
yeah, so just a weird place, and they're okay with not being found out in the woods either. So
Okay.
Nice.
So those are our 8 major players here in the River Kingdoms, or at least the ones that are most powerful on the Outlaw Council. There are a lot of other places that are mentioned in the Guide to the River Kingdoms. Yeah. I really wanted to talk about all of them, but it would have taken us months. So highly encourage everyone to read about some different ones. We are going to do a bonus location for our Patreon listeners. So if you want to hear about one of the other fun locations, we'll talk about that one. But those are our 8 main ones.
Awesome.
So, friends, do we rate?
I think we rate.
Oh my gosh, what do you even rate this on?
1 to 10 rivers.
Rivers?
110 Sellins.
Sellin
rivers.
Yeah, probably just like rivers. I don't know. Yeah.
That's or you could
1 to 10 self-titleds.
Freedoms.
Kingdoms.
Yeah, like 1 to 10 kingdoms.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think we did 1 to 10 kingdoms for the 5 Kings Mountains.
Oh, I think you got to do just rivers.
Just rivers then.
1 to 10 rivers.
1 to 10
Yeah.
Yeah,
rivers.
that's fair.
That's our staple.
Or 0 to 10 rivers.
5. I'm thinking 5 or 6. It's not that bad.
I would say 6. I feel like
it's not that bad.
I feel like there are places you could like hire like a Druid blackjacket or something just to like take you around.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you hired some defense, there's some like a lot of cool places to go here and a few places to avoid.
Yeah.
I'm biased because I just love the chaotic nature of this whole area. So I would probably say 6 as well.
Yeah.
Just because I think there's so many cool things to see here
Yeah.
that I feel like it's worth the potential like risk. But yeah, I think, you get your defense to take you around and prevent you from getting pickpocketed, or you just, don't bring a lot of cash with you.
Yeah,
And it should be fine.
Being here, like living here long term, I think would be a lot rougher.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are. But like, yeah, I mean, besides the one place that I think you said that people are kind of stuck in with the Lambeth, or maybe Lambeth,
Mm-hmm.
like everywhere else to some extent has something cool. And I would spend a ton of time in Gladiator Wonderland.
Right, you could just hang out there, watch gladiator matches for a week, eat some popcorn.
Huh.
Yeah, so I'm a solid 6.
Yeah.
I think this would be a cool place to go to. Like, just to you just have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be prepped.
Preparation required.
Nice. Okay. Well, 6 out of 10 rivers. I like it.
Woo.
And thank you again, Samantha. This was
so formal.
This was great. Thanks again to all our listeners. Hope you enjoyed this special 2-part River Kingdoms episode. And again, if you want to reach out to us, hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on our email, tabletoptravelguidepodcast@gmail.com. Go to our website. There's still the listener survey. There's still the Patreon. But until next week, safe travels, everybody.